Have you ever wondered why you can be surrounded by faith, tradition, even beautiful rituals and still feel like your prayers dissolve into nothing? There's a silence inside those moments that doesn't comfort, but almost stings. You try to fill it with more words, more intention, maybe even a little desperation. You keep waiting for something to answer you, but the only thing that comes back is your own voice echoing in the quiet. People don't talk about this much. Everyone wants to believe that if you just pray hard enough, if you believe in the right way, if you say the right words, then the universe will reply. But what about the nights when you lie awake and your spirit aches for connection, and all you can feel is a kind of invisible distance between you and something greater, between you and even yourself? Maybe you've tried every spiritual practice that promises an answer. Maybe you've studied wisdom from every corner of the world, hoping that somewhere someone figured out the formula. But the more you search, the more you realize the pattern. Everyone seems to be chasing the same elusive voice, the one that tells you you're not alone, the one that gives your longing some shape. It's strange, isn't it? How so many of us are searching for God's voice, for a whisper from the sacred, but so few admit how hard it is to actually hear anything. It's almost as if the world has gotten so loud, so crowded with ideas and opinions and noise, that the quiet place where the divine once spoke has been drowned out. Ralph Waldo Emerson, long before the world became as restless as it is now, noticed this too. He saw how people built their lives chasing after approval, chasing after success, chasing after answers that never truly satisfied. And he asked a different question. What if the voice you're waiting for isn't far away at all? What if you've been taught to look everywhere except the one place it's always been? Have you felt this too? Share your experience. It might be the exact thing someone else needs to hear today. Emerson believed that divinity is not hidden in distant heavens or locked behind walls of tradition. He wrote about a sacred intelligence that flows through everything, a presence you can sense in a quiet forest or the hush of dawn, or the deep stillness that falls between your own breaths. He called it the oversoul, an invisible thread connecting every being, every moment, every piece of existence. But most of us were raised to ignore that inner thread. From childhood, we learned that wisdom comes from outside, from those older, holier, more learned than us. We were taught to kneel, to lower our voices, to wait for permission to feel close to the sacred. And so we learned to silence our own intuition, to doubt our own sense of connection, to believe that only special people, saints, prophets, mystics, could ever hope to hear God's voice. And yet, if you ever stand in a quiet place and just listen, really listen, you might notice something. At first, it's just the sound of your own thoughts, busy, anxious, rehearsing old arguments or planning the next step. But underneath, if you're patient, there's a softer signal, a feeling that doesn't arrive as language, but as a kind of gentle certainty, like the hush before rain, or the way sunlight feels on your skin in the morning. Emerson tried to show us that this presence is never absent. It's not the divine that's missing. It's our way of listening that's out of practice. The world rewards noise and movement, but the sacred moves in stillness and silence. We fill our days with striving and achieving, but the real wisdom comes when we pause long enough to sense what's already true. How often do you allow yourself to simply be, with no plan, no performance, no need to impress or convince? How often do you let yourself trust that your feelings are trying to tell you something, even if you can't explain them to anyone else? Most people will never hear God's voice, not because they are unworthy, but because they've forgotten how to listen with more than just their ears. We're conditioned to expect answers in the form of miracles, thunder, burning bushes. But for Emerson, the voice of the sacred is quieter, something like a gentle nudge, a wordless knowing, a moment of peace that arises for no reason at all. He wrote that we lie in the lap of immense intelligence, but most of us never learn to recognize its embrace. Instead, we chase endless explanations and overlook the simple, powerful truth that maybe, just maybe, divinity isn't found in answers at all, but in the courage to be fully present with the question. And that's a terrifying place to be. Still, uncertain, vulnerable, but also maybe the only place real revelation can reach us. What if you stopped searching for the voice of God in other people's words and began listening to the silence inside yourself? What might you hear if you trusted that the sacred is not something to be summoned or controlled, but something to be received, like sunlight, like breath, like grace? That's the invitation Emerson leaves us with: to risk silence, to risk uncertainty, to risk finding that what you've been searching for has been quietly waiting for you, right where you are. There are moments, though rare and fleeting, when the world goes quiet enough for you to notice the subtle presence you've been missing. Not in a church pew or a crowded ceremony, not in the fervor of a group prayer, but in the hush that falls just after you've stopped trying so hard. Maybe it happens during an early walk, when the city is still half asleep, and sunlight lays across the pavement like a gentle promise. Maybe it's in the woods, where every leaf moves according to a rhythm you don't need to understand. Sometimes it's in the middle of a sleepless night when everyone else is lost in dreams and you lie awake, feeling the ache of existence, the mystery of why you're here at all. This quiet is not always comfortable. For most people, it's easier to fill it than to face it. The phone comes out, music plays, a message is sent, some minor task is found. There is relief in distraction. There is even a kind of safety in the noise. Silence demands presence, and presence, real, sustained presence, often brings us face to face with what we've spent a lifetime running from. Yet Emerson would say that this is precisely where the sacred begins, in the spaces that scare us, in the honest solitude that exposes the raw, unfinished parts of who we are. He tells us that nature does not shout. The wind never tries to impress. The trees do not explain themselves. The river flows and the birds sing, and the sun rises without apology. And yet somehow everything belongs. This is the language of the divine, not of doctrine, but of being. When Emerson wandered into the woods, he did not do so as an escape from the world, but as a return to something more original, more true. He believed that there is an intelligence woven into the fabric of all things, and that when you allow yourself to slow down enough to notice it, you feel less alone. It is in these quiet moments, when you surrender the need to fix, achieve, prove, or impress, that a different kind of voice becomes audible. It doesn't speak in sentences. It speaks in sensations, in feelings, in subtle alignments. There is a way the world feels when you are no longer fighting it, a softness, a sense of being supported, even when you cannot explain how or why. The divine, Emerson wrote, abides in the soul and does not float upon the air. Its message is not delivered through miracles or thunder, but through the everyday miracle of existence itself. Why, then, do so few people ever find this? Why do we keep running from the very silence that could heal us? Partly it's habit, a lifetime spent turning outward for reassurance, validation, instruction. Partly it's fear, because stillness strips away the identities we have worked so hard to build, the masks that keep us safe. In silence, there is no one left to perform for. There is no audience, no applause, no approval or rejection. There is only you. And sometimes, what you find is not what you hoped for. Old wounds rise, memories surface, doubts creep in. It is tempting to turn away, to go back to the comfort of distraction. But if you stay, something begins to shift. The mind, restless at first, starts to quiet. The heart, which has grown wary of disappointment, softens just a little. And beneath the familiar anxieties, there emerges a clarity, a feeling that you are held by something much larger than your individual story. Emerson called this the oversoul, a unifying spirit that connects every living thing, a source that never judges and never withdraws. In these moments, you realize you are not seeking God so much as returning to the ground of your own being, which was always sacred. Real spiritual hearing is less about searching for answers and more about learning to dwell in the presence of the question. There are no formulas for this, no step-by-step instructions. Emerson did not teach rules, he taught trust. He asked you to honor your intuition, to respect the subtle nudges that guide you toward what is true for you, even if you cannot explain it to anyone else. This trust is not blind faith. It is a living relationship with the unknown, a willingness to be led by what you sense, not just by what you are told. This can feel risky, especially in a world that worships certainty and demands explanations. You may find yourself doubting what you feel, second-guessing your every instinct. People around you may question your choices or suggest that you are naive, even foolish. Emerson understood this too. He faced ridicule for speaking of the soul as real, for claiming that every person is a vessel of the divine. But he also knew that real freedom is not given by the world, it is claimed in the privacy of your own heart. There is a story he tells, not of prophets or saints, but of ordinary people who, in moments of deep honesty, feel something shift inside them. A man sits quietly beneath a tree and suddenly knows without doubt that he is connected to everything alive. A woman, lost in grief, walks alone at dawn and finds that the pain in her chest is met by the gentleness of the morning air. A child, forgotten by the world, lies in the grass and listens to the hum of insects, feeling, perhaps for the first time, a sense of belonging that cannot be explained. These are not miracles in the conventional sense. They are moments of alignment, when the veil drops, and you remember that the sacred is not far away or reserved for the chosen. It is available right now in the texture of your own experience. Most people miss this not because they lack faith, but because they have been taught to mistrust themselves. They have learned to value authority over intuition, conformity over authenticity, explanation over wonder. Emerson asks you to risk something different, to risk believing that what moves you in silence is worthy of your attention, to risk honoring your own experiences, no matter how ordinary or inexplicable they may seem. Sometimes, the divine will come to you as a thought, a memory, a longing. Sometimes it is a restlessness, a dissatisfaction that cannot be soothed by anything external. Sometimes it is joy, sometimes grief. Emerson would tell you not to label these as good or bad, not to judge them at all, but simply to listen. Listen with your whole being. Trust that what you are feeling is part of a larger conversation, a dialogue between your soul and the world. You might notice as you do this that your sense of separation begins to dissolve. The distance between you and others, between you and God, between you and your own heart, starts to shrink. You realize that you are not a solitary seeker, lost in the dark, but a participant in an ancient ongoing dance, a dance of call and response, of question and presence, of longing and quiet fulfillment. This is not a destination, but a way of being. It is not always easy. Some days the silence feels empty. Some days the noise is overwhelming. But the invitation remains. Risk stillness. Risk listening. Risk finding that the voice you most need to hear is already present, quietly speaking beneath everything else. There is no authority, no dogma, no ritual that can do this for you. There is only your willingness to listen, to trust, to return again and again to the place where the sacred meets you as you are. You are not waiting for the divine to appear. The divine is waiting for you to notice that it never left. Noticing is an act of awakening. The moment you allow yourself to consider that the divine never left, that it's always here, hidden beneath your rushing thoughts, your daily anxieties, the pulse of your longing. Something inside you begins to shift. It's not a sudden flash of light, not a dramatic miracle, but a quiet, steady unfolding. A realization that perhaps you were never as alone as you thought. Perhaps you were simply distracted by the noise of the world. And now, in this moment of presence, you are returning to the most ancient truth, that you and the sacred are not separate things. There is a kind of courage required for this awakening. It is not the loud courage of heroes, but the subtle, everyday bravery of someone willing to meet themselves honestly, to turn inward again and again, even when it would be easier to turn away. To listen to the quiet voice that rises not from fear, not from memory, but from the still center of your being. Emerson would tell you this is not a private journey. The beauty of finding the divine within is that as you do, you find yourself more deeply connected to everything else. You begin to see that the breath moving in you is the same wind that stirs the trees. The quiet joy that fills you in a moment of stillness is the same joy that moves in all living things. Your pain is echoed in the world, and your hope, yes, even your smallest hope, is woven into the larger fabric of existence. Imagine for a moment moving through your day with this awareness, not as a philosophy, but as a lived experience. You wake in the morning, and instead of reaching for your phone, you sit quietly, noticing the way light spills across your room. You walk outside and listen, not just with your ears, but with your whole attention. You feel the earth beneath your feet, the air on your skin, the quiet wisdom in the rhythm of your own breath. Even as you move through the necessary busyness of the day, a part of you remains in touch with that stillness, that presence. What changes? Maybe not the world, not at first. Maybe the old problems remain, the same uncertainties, the same ordinary struggles. But something within you is different. You are no longer waiting for a voice to thunder from above. You are no longer measuring your worth by your productivity, or your closeness to God by the strength of your beliefs. You are instead learning to trust the subtle signals, the quiet movements of the soul. The sacred becomes not a destination, but a companion, an intimacy that accompanies you through joy and grief, through certainty and doubt. There is freedom in this. Freedom from the endless striving to be good enough, to be perfect, to earn the right to belong. Emerson's wisdom is that you already belong, that the voice within you is not a test, but a gift. It asks nothing of you but attention. It does not demand that you become someone else. It simply asks you to remember who you already are. If you have spent years searching for something more, some final proof, some grand experience, some permission to rest, perhaps this is the moment to stop searching and start noticing. To turn, gently, toward the quiet within. To treat your own soul as a sacred guest, deserving of your curiosity and your kindness. A simple practice. Before you go to sleep tonight, find a moment of real stillness. Turn off the lights, silence the world outside, and sit with yourself. Let the thoughts come and go. Don't try to make sense of them. Don't chase answers. Instead, ask yourself, did I betray myself today to please the world? If yes, forgive it. If no, honor it. Then breathe. Notice the rise and fall of your chest. Notice the way your body feels, the way your heart beats. Trust, for just this moment, that nothing is missing. The divine is not far. The voice you have been seeking is not silent. It's simply waiting for you to become quiet enough to listen. If you find peace, even a small moment of it, hold on to it gently. Let it remind you that you do not need to do anything extraordinary to be worthy of love or to be close to what is sacred. Presence is enough. Sincerity is enough. Your honest attention is enough. In time, as you continue to honor this practice, you may notice that your life begins to soften around the edges. The judgments, the regrets, the restless comparisons, they lose some of their power. You are no longer defined by what you achieve or what you lack. You are grounded in something deeper, something timeless, something that cannot be taken from you. You walk through the world not as someone lost, but as someone at home. You move through your days with a quiet confidence, a humility that comes not from self-denial, but from self-recognition. You know that you are part of something vast and mysterious, and that this mystery is not a puzzle to be solved, but a relationship to be lived. And as you live it, you offer the same gift to others. You become a presence of calm in the storm, a listener in a world desperate to be heard, a bearer of light even on the darkest days. You do not need to preach or to prove. Your being is the message. Your authenticity is the invitation. Emerson would remind you, the greatest wisdom is not found in books or sermons, but in the willingness to be present with your own experience. To listen, not just for the voice of God, but for the voice of truth within yourself. To trust that what is real, what is alive, what is sacred, is already here. It is in the quiet moments, the honest conversations, the tears and the laughter, and the long silences. It is in the way you choose to show up, day after day, not as a perfect being, but as a real one. So, walk gently. Honor your questions as much as your answers. Let your life become the place where the sacred and the ordinary meet. And if this spoke to you, share what part resonated most. If you want more grounded insights from Ralph Waldo Emerson, don't forget to subscribe. Until next time, walk gently and stay true to yourself. You are not alone. The divine was never gone. It is waiting for you, as you are, right here, right now.